welcome back to another episode of Regenerative Inspiration. Today it's going to be a fun conversation. Jamey and I have known each other for a long time. It's Jamey Gadoury, an outsider consulting. I know probably more about you than what most people know, so we won't go into some of those stories maybe, but I think we've got an interesting conversation. So Jamey, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate that. And actually you had me on your podcast too. So tell me about your podcast first so people can go dig that up somewhere and then let's dig in.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks, Will. Great to be here. And the podcast is Outsider Unscripted. It's on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. And Will, as you know, episode number 1 was
episode 1. Check that out.
Number 1. So it was great. We had a lot of fun.
That was good. So tell me a little bit about your background. So
sure.
Tell me from maybe breaking your hip. Over there. Maybe a little bit before.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up outside Boston, went to a year of college down in South Carolina to Columbia Bible College. And then from there went to West Point in New York, graduated 1999, went straight in, commissioned as a infantry officer. And part of the infantry officer pipeline, if you will, is you go to airborne school, you go to ranger school, all this stuff. And I was squeezing in airborne school right before I started my just normal infantry training, and busted my hip, soft tissue damage, had my chute collapsed when I was about, 30 feet, probably a little bit more actually, above the ground, because another parachuter went beneath me, sucked the air out of the parachute, and darted right in. So that moved my timeline right, as it were. With all of that training. So, yeah.
Jeez. So, I mean, you're talking about elite athletes, basically, and you just broke your hip, right? And the training, I think. Yeah, I remember right.
Yeah.
And did that help in not maybe going straight to the front of the war or not? Well,
no, I mean,
sure. So you went to Afghanistan right after that. Right?
Afghanistan shortly after that. So this was like, what was this? This was actually like fall of 99. Yeah. And then it just kind of delayed. I had another injury on actually my last jump. So it was like, maybe I should do less parachuting, but ended up doing a fair amount after that. So kind of worked out.
But you got like 120 pounds on your back there too.
So, I mean, like when you're jumping a ruck, sometimes you're a little more, but the training stuff, you lighten it up a little bit.
So training's 120 pounds?
Training like, it's just, somebody's going to watch
like
this.
If you're jumping in behind and
if you're like actually,
what's on your back?
You got to think about the modern warrior now in terms of wearing body armor, kind of where we've evolved to over the last couple decades. I mean, your basic load, even when you're not carrying a rucksack, you're easily, 65 to 100 pounds of gear, because you've got ammunition, you've got body armor, you've got water, you have perhaps a radio, you've got critical supplies. So you're walking around with kitted up.
That's thinking about
before
that. And that's
yeah,
before you
that's your basic. Yeah. Before you even.
So like 100, how much? Like 200 pounds?
150, 100. It's been so long, I would hesitate to estimate a lot of poundage, a lot of pounds of weight.
Jeez, you got to know it. Use it all. Obviously, that's for trained for.
Yeah. And then your machine gunners, they end up being like, even more, then got some guys that I've reconnected with that were part of our mortar team when we were in Afghanistan, and they're running around with like mortar tubes they're carrying as light infantrymen. It's like, it sounds crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think people understand what goes into it a little bit, but walk them through, like, what does that training look like? Because I mean, I know, like, as a ranger, like, it's like 4 hours of sleep. They train you to like live on that for months, or right?
Yeah,
or less.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's any hour, any time. You have to be ready to prepared, whatever. But endurance.
Yeah.
But mentally as well. So can you walk me through what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say, I'll give maybe some examples for like Ranger School itself, but like infantry in general and combat arms, there's so much, it is about endurance. It's like, how do you just keep going? So like long foot movements, how do you go under lack of sleep or lack of food, or when it's like really cold outside? And I'll tell you, as bad as like the Ranger School experience is, because it's intentionally made that way, go to operational units and they go to like the joint training centers down in Louisiana or out at Fort Irwin in California. some brutal stuff. I mean, guys have just endured, like near hypothermia and near frostbite. I mean, it's all of this is like the conditions are meant to, can you develop that mental capacity to just keep pushing and pushing yourself through? And I had this kind of realization at one point after actually a couple deployments of like the infantry, we asked the infantrymen to endure. Like, that's it. Because like infantry ends up doing like anything that needs to be done, from fighting in the close fight to, picking up being an engineer for a day to like learning communications. But at the end of the day, it's this enduring to just suck it up, keep going until the mission's complete. And it's building that type of resolve that no matter what happens, we're going to accomplish that mission. That's really what it comes down to.
Wow. Yeah. So mentally, how do they train you, and how is that adapted to, we have a lot of business owners, a lot of leaders, aspiring leaders, even those people that are in high school and college and stuff like that. Mental strength.
Yeah.
What advantages or what tips can you give to somebody listening to this?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think and I'll name what's a difficulty in business to develop similar sort of mental resilience, is that in the military, it's always, you've got these high arcane, like, it's the nation, it's national defense, and the mission's like life or death. And so the stakes are so high. It's hard to replicate that in business because the stakes aren't that high, right? And so I'll just say that, I'll name that as like, that's a difficulty in building that, because you don't have that same intensity, you don't have that same shared purpose to that level, right? To this ultimate level. But I would say think about what bonds folks together going through hard times. So much of it is the relationship. It's about you and me are going through this together. I can still like picture people in my head when I was sucking in Ranger School who would come up and they would do something that was, I would just say, an act of kindness. Like, hey, I'll take your guard shift for tonight so you can get some rest because you're probably going to get graded tomorrow. Like that conversation I still remember, because it's like, we're in this, we're going to help each other, and building that sense of camaraderie. And I think that sense of relationship and comradeship is easy to lose sometimes in business because we get so fixated on the balance sheets and on just the numbers and pushing that forward, forgetting that these are human beings that I need to be deeply connected with. And if we don't have a shared purpose that's a high level mission, how do I create that? Right? How do I create that sense of, hey, I'm doing this because of X, but you might be doing it because of Y. How do I help you see Y more? I think that's a piece of it. And then when we're working together, man, we can withstand things, right? Then we go through hardships together. We develop deeper bonds, things that we've talked about, right? Experiences you've had. Yeah. So I think relationally is one thing absolutely everybody's got available.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a key because that's all you really have. You have relationships and experiences in this life.
Yeah.
Right. But in business, in life, and community, I mean, we were just in New York City a couple weeks ago, and like, it's a total different scenario where you have a lot of people living in one area, kind of just ignoring or putting up with people. Right.
Sure.
But they all make the wheel turn there in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's a different form of like relationship or communication or things like that. But like in business, you have like your roles, and like in the military, you have your roles. But when somebody steps out of their role to help somebody else, that's something to remember. Right. Yes. And that can be very contagious across the board. So, we've talked to some CEOs that really, sometimes they don't leave their office, and there's other ones that are like out in the field, making sure that everybody's good, and maybe they had worked their way all the way up, so they have good experience. They see insight. Another CEO talked about like, hey, my team was always asking me to have like a side-by-side or a four-wheeler so they get from here to here faster.
Yeah.
And he goes, I wouldn't approve that expenditure because I wanted them to walk because they did like hydroelectric stuff and things like that. They wanted them to walk because you see more when you're walking.
Yeah.
Then he's true.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's different wisdom sometimes in the way people look at stuff, but like they were upset that he wouldn't do it, right?
Yeah,
right. Then he explained it, and they're like, "Okay, fine, I get it."
Yeah,
but communication with like is a key there, right? And that's a great point. So what then happened that you went to Afghanistan?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I mean, what happened there? Like, I mean, there's a lot of veterans, a lot of people that have gone, you know, through different adversities for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, was it a horrible experience? A great experience? Was there up and down? Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
It's something we've actually never talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. Afghanistan was interesting. We did 6 months. I was with the 101st, with the Rakkasans, based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. So our mode of getting to battle was primarily helicopter. That's the big thing for the 101st, has a wide array of helicopters, much more than the average unit. So when we went to Afghanistan, it was crazy. The best thing I can think of when we got to Kandahar, Afghanistan, if you're a Star Wars fan, I compare it to the planet that Jabba the Hutt's on. You've just got like aliens from like all over the place. You got people from everywhere, and it's just chaos. Kandahar was like that in early 2002. 9/11 had just happened. We had a bunch of allies. We had something like 20 some odd different like SF units and coalition units had come to bear to help out. And then you had the conventional units like the 101st that I was in. And so like just all this, like everyone's showing up for the fight, right? Like everyone's just like, let's go.
Yeah.
Sheer chaos. So then a lot of things that have been, you know, well documented from like the horse soldiers and kind of those legends that have come out more recently on video. So it's like, think of it as like the months just after some of that. We're still trying to push Al-Qaeda, push Osama bin Laden and the others into like find them and then kind of figure out where we can get them at. So we ended up flying into the Shahkot Valley in Operation Anaconda, which at the time was the largest air assault operation since Vietnam. So it was like a big deal.
Yeah.
We're all like on, you know, it was just like massive. And I would say for our unit, a lot of the Afghanistan experience was, I mean, there were absolutely hardships and everything else with it. The company I was in, we didn't take casualties. And that's
very rare.
A big deal.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you don't, and I'll just say that the direction of the war afterwards became even more rare. Right. So it's like, we didn't have as much of that, morale killer, if you will, as other units did. And some units did, you know, lose people. And so I'll say the hardships there, we had a lot of like the victory and, you know, successful operation to, you know, as much as it was, and didn't have that downside, right? Which is very different from later on when I was in Iraq. But we were part of this, I mean, one of the coolest things, I mentioned the mortar guys earlier. We were part of this thing. We landed in the valley. We end up, spare all the details, but we end up getting this far ambush from like Al-Qaeda and other kind of terrorists and terrorist sympathizers. And we end up in this like indirect fire. So like mortars to their mortar systems and back and forth like across the valley floor. And that got intense for a hot minute. And the company commander had to figure out some other ways of getting after it. Because short story, what would happen is our mortars would fire, and a mortar has a very distinct thunk sound that reverberates across the valley, and the round goes up into the air, high trajectory, and then comes down. So in that interim period of that sound traveling, the enemy would go down into their caves, and then the mortars would explode. And then they would come back out, and then they'd start firing at us again. And it was almost like Braveheart when they're like mocking the other armies. It was a little like that. And then we'd have jets come in to drop bombs on them. Same thing. They'd hear the jets and they'd go down their holes. So Kevin Butler was my company commander. He got with Sergeant Meyer, Jonathan Meyer, the mortar section sergeant. Like, we got to figure this out because we're eventually they're going to hit us. You know, they're dialing in on us. They're getting closer each time. So what they did, he had the mortars get ready to fire, and he called in an airstrike. And as the airstrike detonated, the mortars launched.
Okay.
So they came back up out because the bomb had exploded. Yeah. And just as they came out, the mortar rounds came on them.
Wow.
Game over, battle done.
Wow.
So
which saved a lot of lives on
our side, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
crazy. Yeah. So that was Afghanistan. Then you went to Iraq as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what lessons did you learn from Afghanistan? And then how long was that time between Afghanistan and Iraq?
Yeah, it's good. It's about probably 3 years or so. So let's see. Actually, I guess 4 years. So Afghanistan was early part of 2002, and then had an interim assignment, went down as an instructor at the Ranger School in Florida. Did that for a couple of years, then went out to Colorado where we spent some time together.
Yeah.
And from there went to Iraq for about a 14-month or so deployment.
Okay.
And Iraq was it was different. It was different. It was in it like all the time, danger roadside bombs, danger mortars. And we were living in the community, like in the towns, which was different from how we had experienced, or I had experienced Afghanistan. And it was a thing. A lot of, yeah.
So when you're living in a town, like you're in your own building type of thing?
Yeah. I mean,
very vulnerable.
We would take over a building,
Yeah.
And then usually have some sort of payment, to the owners and, evict them. But part of the rationale for that is like when you're doing, which by the time we got there was counterinsurgency.
Okay.
So you're dealing with members of like the enemy, and we had Al-Qaeda in Iraq, all of that going on, where they are living amongst the population and they're also intimidating the population. And so when we got there's this huge campaign of murder and intimidation.
Yeah.
And just before we'd arrived, they had raised like the Islamic State flag and declared downtown Ramadi as the capital of the caliphate, like all of that. And so when you live amongst the population, you're able to build trust because you're actually back to talking about of like actually being on the ground, and not just flying over, not just driving by, but we're actually able to break bread together, build relationships, and all of that. And so that was really our mission when we got there, was first to decrease some of the we call it kinetic, right? When there's battles going on, when there's fights and gunfire, to reduce that, but to do it through building relationships with local tribal leaders.
Yeah.
And that's part of why to live in the community, but also it makes you more vulnerable for sure.
Were you always suited up in that time, or
so when inside the perimeter,
Yeah.
and in different times, depending on threat level, we would, downgrade maybe the uniform on the outside, but when you're in the buildings, you're wearing just, similar to what we're wearing. But yeah, when you go out, you're putting all your kit on, you step outside the wire, and you've got helmet and that 60 plus pounds of gear for sure.
That's, a little warm.
Yeah, a little warm. a lot of water. We did a lot of bottled water. It was kind of a thing.
A lot of bottled water. Yeah, for sure.
Flowing right through.
So you had some adversity right there.
Yeah.
So how do you, what did you take from that? And what principles can you give to others, like on disciplined living, on some of the training regimens, and might not translate exactly, but to a personal core, I think you can.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll say when I look back at my time in Iraq was worst experience of my life and best. Everything we're doing is high stakes, learned a lot, developed me, broke me too. And there were moments when I was not the leader, a lot of moments, unfortunately, that I was not the leader I wanted to be. And so that brought me down to like a low point of like, what are you doing? Right? How are you leading? And I would say a lesson from that, it's like, man, when the stress is high and when we're not whole, it is so easy to then export that to the people we lead. And it's one of the things I focus now in the leader development that we do is like, as a leader, perhaps the most important thing is to be whole. And if we're not caring for ourselves and ensuring that there's full wholeness there, and you can get into physical, your soul, your sleep, your spirit, like everything. But if you're not whole, that gets transported and that makes a bad experience worse for the people we lead. And so business, I think that is a parallel. Like we get fixated on the goals we have. I still do. I get fixated. We're trying to get things done, man, right? Trying to execute and be successful. And over, the question for leader is, how are you doing on your state of wholeness? How are you as a person first, as a human first? Because otherwise, good luck leading the other humans you're responsible for, because you've got to have something to give them. And when I look back, I was so depleted, and reaching a state of brokenness. And I'll tell you, back to relationships, that's what turned a real corner about halfway through that deployment. Had some things that changed just in terms of who I was working with, things like that, and ended up having a guy that's a close friend of mine to this day came alongside me and helped support. And I would say like a learning for leaders anywhere is like, who is that buddy for you? that's walking alongside. Because the higher you go up as a leader, it just gets mathematically lonelier.
Yeah.
Right. Like we don't have to experience that to know. It just is. Who are you going to talk to about these things? But I had somebody come alongside that explicitly made it their mission to come and help lift the burden that I had. It was amazing. And one of the kindest things, I mean, it was operational reasons for all that stuff. But looking back, one of the kindest things that I've received was that. And we're, like I said, close friends to this day.
That's so awesome. Well, because I mean, it is lonely at the top, and people I don't think get that until they get there. You know, and unfortunately it happens. And unfortunately people don't reach out fast enough, early enough.
Yep.
And because you're not supposed to be weak,
Right?
Especially in the army, you're not supposed to be. I got all figured out. Exactly. Yes. Figured out myself. I got this. You know, but that doesn't help those that are with you.
Yes.
And so I think that vulnerability, unfortunately, sometimes you can't ask for it. In certain roles. Sometimes there's people that are. I mean, there's a lot of roles where people don't want to admit that they have any weakness because the people below them are going for their role.
Yes.
Right. And their job. And so in those scenarios, like you've got to go sideways and find some other organization, some place, and somebody that's at a like equal caliber that's maybe gone through that, a mentor. Like, you know, I've always tried to have like 4 or 5 mentors around me at any one time, and you grow through mentors. You know? And a mentor doesn't have to be even alive. It could be a book. It could be a tape set. Like, it's so, I mean, those are things that you can continue to grow through. Now, accountability partners are the best type of mentors too. Where they come along and they're just like, you know what? Did you do that?
Right.
Like, and that helps in the discipline sometimes too. And I mean, that accountability partner doesn't have to even really be like in your team, but it could be somebody who just said, hey, did you do this and this? You said 3 months ago you're going to get to that. Did you get
how's that going?
And did that affect this? You know, so I mean, encourage everybody listening to this to definitely, you know, find those mentors, find the accountability partners, and like, you know, there's lots of different programs and leadership programs and things like that as well that are out there that can help leaders.
100%.
No matter what level of the game you're at a different leadership role. You might be just leading yourself initially, but the best you can be is then like what you need to be so that you can start leading somebody else. You know, it's like everybody wants to be a leader until they have to be there.
Well, it's like not on the packaging, right? Of leadership is that, oh, by the way, the demands on time and energy, it's like to do it right. Like you can do leadership poorly, but if you want to do it right, it will be more than advertised in terms of commitment.
That's a good way.
Are you ready for that? If you are, great, lean in, but you gotta lean in.
Everybody wants to manage somebody, but you have to have somebody to manage, and then you also have to do a job along with managing people, and that's where people forget. Like there's still a role that has to be completed, and you manage.
Yes,
you know, so it's definitely more work.
And I've got to show up at my best and find ways to draw out the best from the people that are on my team, and not just demand it of them. And I'll tell you, well, it's still something I'm challenged with. My team, if we're sitting around the table here, we have instances where I get like focused and I'm like, you know, like just do your job, you know. But it's like, well, but when my team member has a need, that's on me. Like I'm the one that has to fill that and find a way to provide for that need and help equip them to raise them up. I mean, that's the job.
So I'm going to get back on that in a minute, but would you encourage people to go in the military now you've been through it?
Well, that's a tough question, and
a loaded question.
And I'll say why is because I would say if we were just talking like generically, if I'm talking to somebody like, man, I mean, because it'll push you, it'll challenge you, like all these. There's so much upside goodness to it that I would want for myself. So I'll say I would not change. I wouldn't go back and not do it. Right? Like this formed me. But where it gets real is do I want my 19-year-old son to do that and to go through what I went through? And I don't. It was hard and it was risky and there was a lot of darkness over the years and coming back and all that stuff. So it's a complicated answer to a really profound question. Because I would do it again. And I would generally say for people, if you want to really both be tested, but then also grow and be pushed in a lot of ways you don't expect. Heck yeah. But then I'm like, what do I want for my son? Like, yeah, I want him to grow. I want him to go through hard times, but do I want that at that level? And we're not it's not like you can say, well, we're in peacetime and all that. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
But we're a couple decisions away from another major conflict, right?
Yeah. It doesn't seem like we're ever going to be in peace again.
Yeah.
It's always going to be something.
Always something.
Yeah.
So it's when it gets personal, it gets harder to answer that. And I'll tell you, I've got some friends who are dads of folks serving, and they also served. And it's complicated because they're proud of them. And they're like, heck yeah. And then they know, like, talk to one guy right now whose son just got transferred and is closer to the front line if something blows up. And he knows what's going on in his son's mind. Like, heck yeah, bring it on, right? Like, that's what you're trained for.
Yeah.
Super Bowl. But he's also like,
until you're in.
I wish you weren't there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I want you to be safe, right? So as a dad. So it's even in that personal side, it's complicated. Proud of you. Yeah. It's amazing. But then also...
Yeah. Now, when you were in Iraq, weren't you expecting at that point? Like, your wife was expecting?
Yeah, good memory. So when I left,
it was close
for Iraq. Yeah, Micah had just been born.
Just been born. That's right.
Yeah, we were when we were doing our national. You go away for a month or two, and do your train up as a unit to certify you to go to combat. Yeah. He was born just as that. I came back early from that because. His birth. So yeah, he had just been born. He was, let's see, July to when did we October. So you're like 3 months.
I mean, do you think that had anything to do with the leadership too? Because you had that in the back of your head then.
I will definitely say it made it harder, right? So when I went to Afghanistan, we had no kids, and yeah, I was leaving Amy, but we didn't have like our kids, and there was a different dynamic of that gap, right? Of having dad missing for a year or more. Yeah. That was very fundamentally different. I will say that was like an added stressor of that separation, just that awareness of being out of Abby's life, of being like all those things. So yeah, it compounds it for sure.
Well, I've seen that in that, I've seen that because a lot of times to get to a level, you have to take risks, right? Mm-hmm. And those risks are like significant, but they don't mean that much when you're younger, right? Yep. You could get injured, you heal faster. You could, just drive,
I'm bulletproof.
2 days. Yeah. Kind of full. I don't associate with that at all. but like you do more, like you have like, but then as you get more, as you have more families, like that risk level goes down.
Yeah.
So I do think that leaders start to lose their sharpness.
Yeah.
Because this was their main focus.
Yeah.
Now they got these focuses, right? And so there is a place where, again, I don't really believe in balance, but you have to like focus your energy in different ways.
Yeah.
And it gets harder and more complicated.
Well, and to deal then, or at least what I did is kind of splitting to where I'm just going to like sever those emotional connections to what's at home.
Yeah.
So that I can be present in this dark environment.
Yeah.
Where we're dealing with death.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
But whether ours or the person on the other end.
Yeah.
And so that, I think that cutting of the emotional piece is, I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Right. And probably even more necessary as you're describing, as you have more folks you're close to and responsible for.
Yeah.
Then it also contributes to the hardship when people come back. And I had my psychologist years ago. I was seeing a psychologist, and he said to me, how much training did you have to like snip the wires, in the brain, and to just like cut off the emotion and cut off the humanness? I was like, all the time, right? Even basic marksmanship, you're shooting at images of people, right? Yeah. Silhouettes of people, right? You're trying to like just get over this human parts of us. And he said, when you got out, how much training did you get to reconnect the wires? I just laughed.
What was that, like zero?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Big whopping zero.
Yeah.
Right. We don't.
Big gap there. Yeah.
How do you reconnect that? And this, and I don't know how much of this is legend versus actual history, but I know he's very well researched into history, like the book Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield. One of the images that comes out of that is that when the Spartans would go into battle, they would have, I'm forgetting now what the stick was called, but they would break a stick and they would carry the stick with them like a dog tag, and the other stick they'd put in the bowl. And then they'd fight. When they came back, you reached in the bowl and put your stick back together. And it did two things. One, whatever sticks are left, we know who died, right? Because they're no longer joined. But that moment of rejoining was also often cathartic because they were actually putting those split parts back together. Yeah. And it would be like all the physiological, all the crying, like everything. They had this way of saying, we are now intentionally going to reassemble ourselves as actual humans, not as warriors who are in life and death. And I think you know this as well as I, that cultures throughout history have often done that.
That's right.
Like had ceremonies, the community welcomes back. There's ways of saying we have to deal with this thing that was very abnormal, right? Going and killing other humans or risking it, or being killed or risking it.
Yeah.
How do we reintegrate? How do we put that back together? We don't do that well.
No, not since like Vietnam, right?
No.
Since like it just had, there's no ticker tape parades, there's no victory. And really the war just keeps going. The war on terror keeps going. It's a war after war after war. That's why I say it's like, it's not done.
And we don't know how to reintegrate. Like we just don't know how to
put it back in a box.
No.
Right. There was a man who would come to his house, and every night he would grab this tree, take a couple seconds, walk in, close the door, come back out the next day, do the same thing. Every night after work, come home. Neighbor noticed it and said, why every night do you come home and you grab that tree and you stand there? He's like, well, I call it my worry tree. He goes, because I took all the worries I had of the entire day, of my entire work week or work day or whatever, and I put them on the tree.
Yeah.
And he goes, when I come out in the morning, then I don't have to think about them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When I come out in the morning,
yes,
they never seem to be as heavy.
Yeah.
And so, but there's a separation there. And this is something I noticed too. Like there's a lot of work at home. There's a lot of different things like that. And there's a very much not a separation in a lot of people's minds. Like I remember like having a longer drive home from the office, was able to like decompress, get all the stuff out of my head, and then, get home to the family and like, you're in a different mode, right? When you're like,
oh yeah.
And that is not like what family wants to see.
Right.
So we'll just put it there.
Yeah.
So, but then you get there, and it's not like it's a different, now you can like release it. Like it's like the same thing in that worry tree or the ride between. There needs to be a delineation from when you were in war. There's a delineation, that broken stick, putting it back together.
Yes.
It's a mindset shift.
Yes.
Sometimes it just takes time. And I think, spouses need to understand that with each other. Like, when you just come, like when you're working at home, you just finish like, however many Zoom calls or whatever else there is, and you're still like, going right, but it's like there's like, all right, come on, let's eat, type of thing. And it's like, it's not like friendly cozy time for a minute, and you want to be there, but it's not always like, you got 15 more tasks you didn't finish and you're upset that you didn't finish those tasks,
and they're running in the back.
So I think that open communication is the key there, and I think there's a lot people can learn from that.
Well,
so it's writing them down.
Yes. Right? Yeah. It's that you're naming that transition and that sort of boundaries between worlds, if you will, which again, not something we do well in our society. And we were talking about it just before filming of like, we've got these devices we carry around. And so now not only am I like distracted and diffuse everywhere, I'm also like always have access to work. Or work has access to me, unless I'm very deliberate to set my devices up the way to prevent that.
Airplane mode.
Exactly. Right. Like unless I do that, I'm like potentially in it all the time. And so we're never, whether it's reintegrating but we're never like shifting our role in a way that keeps us whole. And I think rhythms of rituals, rhythms of closing the book, touching the tree, I think that's beautiful, like brilliant, because we're so dialed into like the physical. And if you can have something that, like, in my mind, I'm like actually physically shifting between this. A friend of mine calls it the liminal spaces, is a term that's out there for how do we walk between the floors of our life. Like when we're shifting, we're going to a different floor for a different family time, right? Versus work time. And when we're on that stairwell, that's this liminal space. Yeah. And we don't act that way, right? We don't take that time to, all right, let me jot down those 5 of those 15 things that are in my mind, and I'll pick that up tomorrow. And we need to. And I would say from a hack perspective, that's a great hack for the audience you're talking, CEOs, et cetera. Like, do that, do those transitions. And even sometimes it's within the work setting, because you may go from an event or an environment that's distinctly different, and you may do it in a very short period of time. Yeah. How are you shifting yourself in those moments so that you're showing up fully in each of the spaces you're responsible for?
Yeah. And I think there's something else too. I mean, with military, I mean, there's been a lot of like understanding and progression in PTSD.
Yep.
Right? There's been events like after a car accident, after different things that are like incredibly like emotional to somebody. Like when you're close to losing your life, there's a PTSD moment, no matter
100%.
where you're at.
Yep.
And you get your mind keeps working. Your mind is so incredibly powerful. And that's why I was interested if the military taught you anymore on it, because like it's like this recurrent thing. Yeah. It will not quit talking about it until you do something about it or you write it down.
Yeah.
So I found that like people that write stuff down and get it out, then your mind finds like, okay, you wrote it down, you're good. And you can like literally finish that task. I don't know if a device does the same thing. I really think there's so many studies in the past where like if you wrote a business plan, that means you wrote a business plan, you wrote it out physically, or, you know, maybe even whiteboarded it, that there was a much higher success rate. I just don't know that it translates to tablets and devices. It might for a couple brain types, but not for everybody. So writing things down, having those, like, it doesn't even have to be a journal, just something you could throw it out later, but like, it's like, just get it out of you.
Get it out of your head.
I think that's a very big help for a lot of people that are struggling, you know, and as well as mentors and people that can be around you and people you can count on as well.
I think the writing down is huge. Absolutely. And there is research around when you do this, with your hands moving, there's something about how the brain processes that's different from this and typing it all out or thumbing it if we're on our phone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're tactile, right?
Yeah.
It's nice to, you know, be able to go out and garden or walk in the grass barefoot and ground yourself.
Yeah.
That's a natural part of life that people should get too busy to do.
So let me give you this one thing, because this is stuck in my mind. I use this, you know, with some frequency with clients of what I did learn in the military. So before Iraq, we're getting geared up, and it's intense, right? Because you're always, the stakes are so high. So you're always thinking like, if I don't do this thing and dot the I over here, that could have an impact and risk somebody's life over here, right? So there's so much to do to get it all done. There's demands coming down from higher. There's, you know, dumb demands. There's really smart demands. There's like all of it, right? Like all of the above. And so it's high stress. You don't have a lot of bandwidth. And twice in the year before we left for Iraq, my battalion commander, a guy named Chuck Ferry, made the decision twice to take out, I think it was 2 days, let's say, 1 or 2 days, to take all his key leaders from the battalion and to stop work. And in the first instance, it was to go skiing up in the Colorado mountains. Took everybody skiing.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was a staff officer doing all this stuff. Like a peer of mine and I were like the only ones to stay back, because we legitimately, like, there were some things that had to be done. But he took that break away. And then again in the spring, whitewater rafting. And he put, if you will, his money where his mouth was, that sometimes, as pressing as everything is, I can't think of many things in business much more pressing than going and winning at war, right, in a few months. Yeah. And he said, and still, it's so vital to build relationships within this team. It's so vital for us to take a breath, go do something that actually is fun, right? And you ski, snowboard the mountains, right? Whitewater rafting, right? Like to go do these things, kinetic, physical things together. That's important enough. We're going to carve out time for it in a time that we don't have time legitimately. And leaders can do that. Leaders can rise up to the 1,000, 10,000 foot level and say, you know what, as hectic as things are right now, I'm going to have a discipline of saying, we're going to box out time to go do things that are important for us as a team that aren't about just finishing the task list.
Yeah.
And that helps everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a solid point that I think, there's always been that work hard, play hard side of things, but like to do it with your whole team.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, you don't want to do that because you're like, I'm wasting all these hours on these things. Count it up. We used to do ski days, it's like, we haven't done that because not everybody skis. I don't want to hurt people either. I'm like, that's a nightmare.
What's the risk assessment? I was like, do we have instructors?
Yeah. If you're just a beginner, we're not doing ski day. Okay. We can do whitewater rafting, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
Pretty fun. But like, something that everybody wants to do too.
Yeah. Like, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that's a really good point. This is a really good point. So talk about a little bit about your consulting, what you do there, company, and like the types of companies that you consult with.
Sure.
The things you bring to their, their teams.
Yeah. So work with, really, I would say that the overarching is working with growth-minded individuals and groups of those. So I do one-on-one coaching with leaders, and then also we'll work with a team to help them be more cohesive, to work better together, work on communication, relationships. How do we collaborate better? Where are the gaps that we're not seeing? Sometimes that's as simple as getting someone from the outside to give that perspective. And sometimes every now and then I'll get this question like, hey, how do we compare to other teams you've worked with? Right? Like, it's like everyone wants to know, right? Like, where are we at on this? Like,
just tell me at the bottom.
Like, we're the team up. We got a long way to go. Like, a long way.
I can't even make that comparison.
That's right. But come on, man. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it's that of like, okay, we can do things because I continue to relearn this of how diverse we are as human beings. And if we look out that window, the way that you see it is different from how I see it. And we're sitting very close to each other.
Yeah.
And how do we pull out all of that in a healthy way and be mindful that sometimes when we're doing this and hitting each other or just scraping up and there's friction, sometimes it's because we just are wired differently, and it's okay. So let's figure out how to do it better. And that's a big piece of what I'll bring to teams. Like, let's figure out how to do this better. And then how does a most senior leadership level, how do they mentor and coach their people? Right? Because there's a lot of training. There's a lot of, you'll even have like basic management stuff in terms of charts and all of this. But to truly invest in the development of leaders is something that's not that widely done in comparison to the need.
Right.
And to say, we're going to come alongside you and actually help you become a better leader, to be that whole leader first, and then to wrestle with some of the things that, hey, it's on you as the owner of the company, as the leader, it is on you. How do you handle that? How do you walk through that? How do you make decisions? How do you have a vision for where you're headed and bring that down to the people? How do you do all those things? And so often I'm providing thought partnership to people just to wrestle with things. I don't come in with like, hey, Jamey's got all the answers. My team doesn't come in that way. I think that's just wrongheaded.
Yeah.
Frankly. Now, are there things we can learn from people to say, hey, I did these 5 things and it worked, and like, let me try that? Sure. But to come in and say, well, if you do exactly what I did and I've got all the answers, like, no. Yeah. What I do is come alongside and say, hey, I want to walk with you and help you find the answers. I may have a nugget from time to time. Great. But let me challenge you. Let me ask questions. Let me walk with you, do some holding accountable to just continue on the path. And instead of doing kind of this gradual growth, because everybody's going to grow anyway, can really start to like hockey stick that growth and say, why would I wait? Right? Why would I take a longer period of time to grow if I could take a shorter period of time? And that's essentially what I do with individuals and with teams.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. The any highlights or any things that you want to share on that? Or What do we miss? I feel like we might have missed something, but I'm not sure what.
I would say, one thing that's just exciting for me right now is like my team is growing, and like for years, like first it was just me, and then it was me and a part-time person helping out with some of the admin, and then we're doing that. It was like still kind of isolated work, and then it was a couple more, but now we're really getting towards truly a team, and that's fun, and it's also growing pains because I'm having to change how I do some things, and all of that. But that's exciting, and as we look at the growth we have and our ability to scale, it's pretty cool. Like we've got a team, and so we're growing, and I'm getting to apply some of the things that I've coached others on, right? Like all of these things, that's exciting. I would say, I know we talked about like, what are some of the common things that leaders wrestle with over and over again? That whole thing of stepping out of the fray and the execution and the madness of our schedules and simply taking even a few moments to breathe and think at a higher level. That's a scarcity. It's precious.
Yeah.
Just had an instance in the last month or two where team I was working with were kind of like, pushing towards some of those things. A couple of the executives took time out to just say, hey, like before we were about to go do this, let's just take a minute. Is that how we should do it? And the default was, well, we've done it that way every time.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Like, well, why would like
back to the military?
like, of course we're going to do it that way.
Yeah.
But they took a minute and said, you know what? People might raise eyebrows, but we're going to change this, and we're not going to do that the same way. And knowing their industry, I don't think I'm exaggerating to say that had the potential to be $1 million decision.
Yeah.
Just on that. And I don't know the exact moments. It can't have been more than 15 minutes between the conversations they had. But those are scarce. Those are gems because I owe you something. I have a job to do.
Yeah.
Are we thinking about the right thing? Yes. Are we solving the right problem? Right. Those kind of questions.
Right. I mean, innovation is key, right? And a lot of times your team knows more than what you do, because they're right there. They're in the field. They're having the interactions. They're hearing the gripes over here or the accolades over here. But like, I know of 2 instances for sure where like an idea was brought up to a senior executive and they didn't think it was pertinent because it wasn't their behavior.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I get this a lot actually, because like a CEO might make a decision because of their own consumer behavior.
Yeah.
But yet, like, it's not what their consumer is doing. But that's beside the point. But these 2 were scenarios where they're like, this is what's happening in the market and we should do this.
Yeah.
I mean, this goes back to even like creating a website focused on e-com. Okay. So
Sure.
like way back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then that company bought this company back after quite a few years for like $200-300 million. Like, so there's another one where they were a consultant to the same company that they had the idea for, and they paid them like $100 million or something. It's like, so it would have been a lot easier for just you to listen.
Right.
But sometimes it doesn't work. And that's why entrepreneurs and live, and so unfortunately, like larger, when you get too much structure, sometimes you can't innovate. And I think now everybody's getting shaken up by AI and everything that's happening there and all the different things. And I mean, I know you see it, and people, don't know what they're doing with it yet. It's like kid 16-year-old with a Ferrari, blood on the highway, pretty much. So, because they're making decisions without really testing it all out. Giving up their data too fast. Like, I mean, it's there's some serious scenarios there, and there's some serious benefits. But what would you talk to, like, okay, there's a lot of high schoolers, college age kids that, maybe they're in the middle of a degree, maybe they don't know what they want to do. What would you give them? What advice would you give to them at this day and age? Like, because I mean, you got kids that age too. Like, what advice would you give your kids at that stage of the game, and what they could do? I mean, how they should do it, that type of thing.
The first thing I say, and I've said this often to our kids, is our society places so much pressure to have it like all figured out by like the time you're an 8th grade.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Like if you don't know what you want to do and you don't have your 10-year plan, like all that, like, no, that's just not true. I know too many stories of folks like the path winds. I bet if we
Mindset.
both looking back, right?
Yeah.
You didn't plan it. I didn't plan it, right? Like, wow, here I am. Right. And I think of just being okay with that, because the press of academic institutions, the press of society, look, college, all that, great, right? It's great. There was, I think that as we were growing up, there was this whole thing. Like, I remember my granddad being so proud that all 4 of his kids were college graduates because he only got an 8th grade education, right? Like, it meant something, and it opened doors and all of that. Man, education is so much more democratized now. And the deception is that everybody, not just a doctor or rocket scientist, has to have this like clear, delineated path that ends at a certain place and it's all figured out. And I would say, don't buy in, because that's so much added pressure that you don't need. Now, do something. Heck yeah, because that's how you're going to learn. We're designed to work, right? We're designed to be productive. Pursue something. And if you get partway down the road and like, I learned some things, but I don't know that this is it. It's okay to change.
Yeah.
And so along with that, I would say the other is like risk. Take risk now. Like, don't wait. Get out there, take risks, be okay with failure. And that could mean, for any of us, that could mean public speaking, right? That could mean trying a major or a degree that you don't think you can do, but it interests you. That could mean making a decision to go do business and defer college or not go. I mean, whatever it is, take the risk. And you might fail. That's okay, because you're going to learn from it. And like, I love Carol Dweck and her stuff of like growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Fixed mindset says, I failed, I suck. Growth mindset says, I failed and I'm learning from it and I'm going to get better at it. I'm going to knock it out. Embrace that mindset. Like that's what I would say to folks that are on the early part of career and education. Yeah. Take risk and embrace failure.
Yes. Basically, we'll learn a lot.
So exactly.
It means you failed a lot.
Okay. It means you failed a lot.
Yeah, you failed a lot.
Yep.
It's all sorts of like sports analogies of how, Michael Jordan failed so many times, but yet it's better, or a batter.
Abraham Lincoln in politics, right? Like
exactly.
The whole, all of that.
Well, Jamey, it was awesome having you on today. Thank you so much for being here. And, please feel free to reach out to either of us. If you're struggling and have some issues, please, find us, share this, share with a friend us, follow us, all that stuff. You know what to do. So, but until next time, another episode of Regenerative Inspiration. Thank you so much, and love yourself a lot more than you are right now, and push in. So you should do.
Awesome. Yeah. Heck yeah. That was awesome. Thank you.
Good stuff.